Hello, this is the fourth issue of Laconic. Our theme is close-range photography. I have called it Aiming for the Unseen Angle. Street photography is a precarious concept. It is a myth that reached its peak when the streets pulsed with the vibrant life of their inhabitants. The street was once the quintessential site of social documentation. Today this seems less true. Indeed, the streets have lost their vitality to the cyberspaces. They have become primarily zones of hurried, insecure transit, where people are rarely inclined to linger. One can easily notice that urban furniture is designed to discourage prolonged presence, to prevent people from appropriating public spaces. Collective space is deliberately uncomfortable. However, the visual document with social reach is not the exclusive domain of the street. Every space of sociality, public or private, tells the life stories of those who inhabit and animate them, their relationships, interactions, and social, emotional, and human transactions. For anyone wishing to capture this dimension, the crucial element lies in physical proximity, a gateway to the intimate, the psyche, the accidental moment that reveals what lies beyond the mask, and the conventional persona. Thus, the idea of photographing one subject up close is often seen as a sort of grail. This photographic method is credited with conferring qualities that images usually lack: interest, authenticity, vitality, intimacy, emotion. A meaningful detail that both points and disorients, that stirs us. Every street photographer knows Robert Capa's famous dictum: if your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. And of course, this has been interpreted metaphorically in countless ways. Close-up photography is actually tied to a technical factor: the focal length used and the distance to the subject. It is the focal length that determines the wide-angle view essential to this approach. It is not difficult to understand, but the technical aspect comes into play. If you use a long focal length, a telephoto lens, say 90mm to 200mm, what you place in your frame will necessarily be distant. Otherwise, you are photographing a shirt button. With a telephoto, the subject is inevitably 10-15 meters away or more. The crucial point is that your range of angles becomes extremely limited, essentially flat, 0 or just a few degrees relative to the horizontal. By contrast, with a focal length of 20 to 28 millimeters, you must approach to fill the frame. This proximity opens up a multitude of angles, framing possibilities and compositions. In my view, this is where the secret of close-up photography lies, in this infinite variety of nuances available for spontaneous composition. But this wealth of potentially meaningful images comes at a price, overcoming the resistance and reserve that usually keeps us at a safe distance from others. With this short focal length, 20mm or less, convex distortions occur. They can be substantial and creatively exploited. This spiral distortion makes the center of the image appear to advance toward the viewer while the edges are pushed outward. Straight lines near the edges can curve outward. If the subject allows, these distortions can give incredible punch to an image, exaggerating the dimensions of the foreground subject. This technique has been used repeatedly in iconic photographs of boxer Muhammad Ali, extending his fist toward the camera, producing striking realism and depth. For me, what remains compelling about this approach is the thrill, the heightened engagement in the photographic act itself. Initiating a human and social interaction is already challenging in societies increasingly relocated to cyberspace. Social bonds are in crisis. The contemporary individual is atomized, confined to solitude. The close approach defies conventional relationships, creating a sense of living the moment with exceptional intensity. And when reviewing the images, the memory and emotion are far stronger than with distant shots or tripod-bound photos. A sense of participation in the spectacle enters the practice, and perhaps this is also its limit. Should one engage to the point of vampirizing the event, turning it into a personal show? I have sometimes felt this during my boldest photographic expeditions. Does one still serve the purpose at such extremes? I do not have the answer. Board number 1. Carnival Tropical. In this board, we are in 2017. That year, the Carnival Tropical in Paris was held on the legendary Champs-Élysées, an inspiring location if there ever was one. It certainly pushed me to go beyond myself to capture the best photographs possible. Naturally, I decided not to remain behind the barriers. As usual, I devised a little subterfuge. In my camera bag, I always carried one of those small, transparent plastic pouches with a cord, the kind handed out at professional trade fairs for entry tickets. The trick is simple. Keep the ticket, which usually displays a large QR code. I would wear this pouch ostentatiously around my neck as I stepped over the barrier past a policewoman. She glanced at the accessory, noted my camera equipment, and assumed I was a professional photographer, accredited to cover the event. And that was it. I was no longer a spectator. I had crossed the threshold past the gatekeeper and was now an actor on the Champs-Élysées amidst an extraordinary parade. It was worth it, wasn't it? Looking at this photograph, it strikes me that dancing seems to be the antidote to life and death. I mean, mortal life, the painful human condition. These magnificent dancers, I imagine them leading ordinary lives, holding ordinary jobs perhaps. Yet somewhere in an apartment in a distant Latin American city, hidden at the back of a closet, hangs a costume that emerges only once or twice a year. This costume is beyond life and death. It is a triumph, a magical garment endowed with miraculous powers. I call it the costume nonetheless, or in spite of everything. And this is what it seems to tell us. Are you in love? Has your child just been born? Dance. Are you upset? Dance. Are you defeated by a brutal and absurd world? Dance twice as much. Perhaps this is the costume of true celebration, the antidote to human tragedy. My photograph is far from perfect. There's a person whose silhouette can be glimpsed behind our dancer in the foreground. Sometimes one must choose, capture the moment as magically as it is, or risk losing it to compose more deliberately. Yet, when I consider the dancer's face, his smile and distant gaze, his hands poised to beat the rhythm of life itself with a capital L, the life that dances in an act of total generosity, I feel I have captured the best photograph in the world. Here again, it seems not so much the technical perfection, but the story of the image that matters. What I also love in the composition, imperfect as I said, is the second dancer. This second protagonist plays a counterpoint role. Both dancers balance on the same leg, their right leg, but our foreground dancer seems on the way back, leaning on his leg, swaying to his left, the right side of our photograph. The dancer in the background, by contrast, is still in motion, swinging to his right, left side of the photo. Moreover, he glances sideways, his face shaded by an elegant little hat. These are not repetitive motions nor mimetic or disciplined repetitions. Instead, This is a counterpoint of movements and attitude that creates an impression of joyful, free harmony. If I were to do it again tomorrow, I would try something. I would set 2 modes in my DSLR with 2 shutter speeds, one at a minimum of 1/250th of a second, as in this photograph, the other at about 1/8 of a second, with a very closed aperture and the ISO as low as possible, ideally 100 or even 64. With this second mode, I would attempt to write the samba motion swinging left to right across the sensor for an even more dynamic image. Regarding the young woman in the left photograph, whose friend adjusts her floral parade headdress, not the subtlety of her facial language, a sidelong glance heavy with unspoken thought. Her subtle, characteristic pout emphasizes her emotion. It could be light mockery, restrained irony, or perhaps a fleeting, flirtatious glance toward a dance partner. Whatever it is, her relationship with a friend behind her, whose action she does not see, seems marked by joyful complicity. Board number 2. The man with the cigar. Sometimes we are struck by a surprising image that we had not anticipated, an image for which we bear no responsibility. We simply saw something for a brief moment and pressed the shutter. We had not imagined, constructed, or composed this shot. Perhaps it is the result of a strong intuition, or simply luck. In any case, when reviewing the series, we confront an image that carries a certain je ne sais quoi, something that unsettles us. We feel compelled to probe it, to understand why. What does it contain? What singularity does it conceal? How does it hold subtle, silent meaning for us? In the case of the man with the cigar, what strikes me is the sense of power emanating from this candid portrait. Where does it come from? What gives rise to it? Perhaps the background sky with its clouds, the open, infinite space, contributes. Does the man silhouette himself against the sky in a manner reminiscent of a deity? It is far from sufficient, isn't it? This man stands remarkably straight, often interpreted as a sign of psychological balance and self-mastery. On his harmonious face, I perceive a subtle, enigmatic inward smile. His eyes are hidden behind massive sunglasses that alone suggest the confidence required to wear them, lending him an air of assured authority. Yet it is the object the man delicately holds between his fingers, his cigar, that invites the most investigation. This typically masculine object carries essential symbolism. Psychoanalysts might see in it a phallic element, echoing the form of the male member. Symbolists or iconologists might recognize in this small masculine baton a reminder of the royal scepter and its axis symbolism. The notion of the axis is precisely what defines the king. To reign in the deepest sense is to be this immobile axis, the central point necessary to the very geometry of movement, yet remaining unmoved, impassive, unaffected. Around it evolves the harmony of cyclical movements, metamorphoses, circular or elliptical revolutions. The axis belongs to the perpetual transformations, yet simultaneously transcend them. And in a sense, this is what the man holds in his hand. Nowadays, smoking has become less common, socially frowned upon and somewhat outdated. Cigarettes in particular neither signal cleanliness nor elegance. Cigars, however, are different. They appear reserved for a social class of higher economic status. The act of smoking remains ordinary in common understanding, a refined pleasure, a gesture of sophistication and taste, but nothing profoundly decisive. Yet tobacco holds a central, sacred place in Native American traditions. It is considered a master plant with purifying and protective properties, a medium between the human and spiritual worlds. Before smoking, it is traditionally consumed in infusions, macerations, or drinkable juice, aiding in clarity of diagnosis or intuitive guidance. What I mean to highlight is that tobacco embodies masculine forces par excellence, solar forces linked to speech, will, and direction. It also serves as an axis of connection. Its smoke rises to the sky, bridging the underworld, earthly, and celestial realms. It is the bridge between matter and spirit. All of this is encapsulated in a small object, in the act of smoking, and in the gesture of this man, at least in contemporary westernized form. In Native American traditions, tobacco is one of the most potent plants, sometimes regarded as the mother or father of all medicinal plants. Its consumption requires initiation, maturity, and personal strength. For ancient peoples with profound ancestral knowledge, and for those preserving it today in places like Peru, smoking tobacco is no trivial act. Isn't it striking to observe the shift, even inversion, of tobacco's significance in Western history? These powerful symbolic elements evoke, consciously or not, the deep conceptual references embedded in our humanity, buried in the human psyche across millennia. These memories only wait to surface, to be known, and to guide our clarity of thought. You've chosen to travel this far with me. Our visual and reflective journey speaks to you. Now it is your turn to leave a trace of your passage, a comment, a poetic phrase, a sharp punchline, or simply a thumbs up. The choice is yours. And if you feel at home in this space of anthropo-photographic reflection, then subscribe to the channel. You are welcome here. Board number 3. In board number 3, body parts fill our frame, creating an intriguing off-screen effect that sparks the imagination. When our close-up framing isolates only part of the whole, it sets the dream machine in motion. The mind wants to know more, to fill in the gaps of information. By hiding a portion of the scene, we invite the viewer to imagine beyond what is visible. I often photograph legs for their own sake, because they seem to possess life and personality of their own. We encounter joyful legs, shy legs, bouncing legs full of enthusiasm, determined legs rushing to work, dancing legs, robust legs that display themselves without shame. Board number 4, Chantilly Summer Suit. Board number 4 presents a man in a suit at the Chantilly races. Such occasions, now rare, allow us to perceive how clothing expresses a way of being in the world. Attire can indicate harmony or discord with one's surroundings, or act as a mirror of the society. Today, clothing often reflects a social world subject to entropy. Dressing the body is a way to acknowledge reality, to adapt with skill and grace. A suit provides structure, a defined form and clear lines. These boundaries define and shape one's presence in the world, resisting the temptation to blend into an ambiguous stain. On this board, the angle of the shot reinforces these aspects, the verticality of the man, his assertion in the world, and the ensemble of his summer attire. Light and flowing suit, hat, sunglasses encapsulate a deliberate presence. Personally, I dream of a world where ordinary people, men in t-shirts, shorts, sneakers and caps, would realize the implicit regression in their attire. These words of globalized modernity, many of them Anglicisms, mark a regrettable rupture with French cultural sensibility. I imagine awakening a consciousness in my contemporaries, where a flash of clarity and a self-aware smile reveals: this outfit belongs to a child still seeking role models, incapable of asserting a firm individual subjectivity, copying the appearance of their hero, their favorite footballer. See you next time. Ciao.